Black Earth offers a full suite of humic solutions, from high-purity granules to powder, liquid, and soluble formulations, all powered by pure humulite. Trusted by growers worldwide from one of the world's rarest humulite reserves. Grow stronger with the power of Black Earth humulite. Learn more from Mine to Market by visiting blackearth.com.
Every weekday at 10 a.m. Central, one of the personalities from Real Agriculture appears on RFD TV and Rural Radio 147's Market Day Report to shed light and insight and perspective on what is happening in the world of agriculture. Enjoy.
Well, thanks for watching Market Day Report. We do appreciate you staying with us. I'm Suzanne Alexander. Well, the U.S., Canada, and Mexico preparing for next year's review of the USMCA trade pact. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney recently visited Mexico to talk trade as both countries gear up for negotiations with the United States. Host of Real Ag Radio, Shaun Haney, in the studio with us, along with Tony St. James for a closer look at the conversations that, of course, are taking place between these countries. Shaun, you and I have talked about this. Prime Minister Mark Carney, different times, because it's been years since a prime minister has made the trip to Mexico. Talk about the mission, the goal of this. Your thoughts?
Yeah, so doesn't it seem kind of odd that it would take years for a Canadian Prime Minister to go to Mexico? So it was looked upon very, very fondly and positively. You know, we had this triangular trade agreement between Canada, the U.S., and Mexico. And the U.S. is really the center of it. We don't see a lot of talk between Canada and Mexico to try to increase trade. So I think it's seen very much as a positive in that fact. But, of course, they were trying to get, I think, a little bit organized in terms of, okay, how could we work together if there is some sort of renegotiation, and not a review, but a renegotiation? How can we leverage each other's strengths to try to negotiate with a tough negotiator, President Trump?
Obviously, making sure that they know where they stand when these negotiations take place. And I said to you in the green room, I said there's always the fine line of that. And how would the U.S. perceive Mexico and Canada getting together? Would they feel threatened by this trade strengthening? But I like what Carney said, and I pulled this out specifically, saying that we complement the U.S. We are all stronger together, letting it be known that we are all in this together.
Yeah, and I think it's a very similar message you're going to hear from U.S. farm organizations as well, is that this is an integrated supply chain. It's a complementary supply chain, and it's absolutely critical that it stays intact. You know, we heard a lot during the NAFTA renegotiation, do no harm. I think we're going to see a lot of the same. I'm seeing U.S. farm groups already talking about, review, not renegotiate, which is a big difference. And I think that we're going to hear more about that.
We're going to be talking trade, of course. Tony St. James at the table here. Speak to trade. One of the big things. We talk about Canadian canola.
Yeah, exactly. You know, the U.S. And the soybean industry here has been really upset with China not coming back to the feed trough, if you will. Yeah. But as frustrating as that has been for American growers, Canada facing a similar situation, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And very running in parallel, both canola and soybeans are oil seeds, being treated very the same. You know, I'm trying to remind a lot of times the American audience that, the U.S. soybeans feel like they're targeted, but this is an issue that a lot of countries around the world that have relied on China as that prop-up buyer, to deal with the slug of supply that we are very much dealing with right now, especially when you look at corn. Other countries are dealing with it as well. Canadian canola, there's significant tariffs on meal, oil, and seed. And Australia is providing a backfill. Australia had their turn with China where they couldn't get, canola or barley, even some wines into the Chinese market. They've repaired that relationship, and the U.S. and Canada are feeling the brunt of it.
I just kind of wonder, though, there are some who want to get China back into that trade mix, if you will. But based upon what you said, there's some history here that maybe it's not a reliable long-term solution. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think it's important to remember that China is not Japan or a South Korean market. Those are high-quality, stable markets. When China is willing to buy, the money is good. And there's a lot of volume. And right now we are facing a situation where there's the deterrent. And they are not at the trough, like you had said, stepping up. And so we're going to have to find other solutions to deal with some of our domestic supply of canola and of soybeans and other commodities as well. And I'm a big believer that biofuels are a big component of that.
Yeah. I wanted to speak to that, obviously with Mexico coming to the table with Canada, opportunities there. What is Canada looking at What do you think Prime Minister Mark Carney is saying to Canada as far as commodities, opportunities, opening up that access?
Yeah, when it comes to Mexico, canola is a big opportunity for sure to export more from Canada to Mexico, especially
they don't
if you
take as much, right? It's more seed than it is oil.
And I think if you look at it, Canada's kind of tapped out from a canola acre standpoint. So there's actually opportunity for the U.S. to grow its canola acre as well. If Mexico increases its appetite for canola, whether that is meal or that is oil or seed, that's actually also good long-term for the U.S. grower, too, as they look for other alternatives in some of these other crops.
Any issues, we talk about, we've said it again and again here, the Mexico ban that they had on GMO corn. Any thoughts as far as restrictions in dealing with Mexico as far as that's concerned, as far as their health or environment and restrictions that they have? Yeah,
so there was the Canadian Canola Council really was vocal when the U.S. has been fighting, on this GM issue with white corn into Mexico. Canola Council was very vocal about it. Because they are worried. They don't want Mexico to take this stand across other crops as well. Of course, a high majority, almost 100% of the canola that is grown in Canada is GM based, and they want to see Mexico taking that kind of stand against science.
One of the other things we wanted to talk about, and you wanted to address, and we've spoken about this, the ad hoc programs, of course, helping out farmers here short-term in the United States. What's going on with Canadian farmers, and is there opportunities for them there?
There's a lot of calls for the same kind of ad hoc programming. There's a lot of concern from a farm profitability standpoint. Beef, of course, is in a different vicinity when it comes to profitability. But the Canadian government's really been relying on current programming, increasing that programming, maybe interest-free loans, things like that, some bridge to get to the other side of it. I'm not sure that's going to be enough in the U.S., and we're going to probably see if we get through this government shutdown, see some large ad hoc programming to try to backfill, especially in the South, like in the Cotton Belt. Yeah. It is bad.
Yeah. Sentiment here, of course, a lot of guys obviously worried. Canadian farmers feeling the same? What's the sentiment there on that side?
Worried about profitability?
Yeah.
Oh, very much so. High input costs, commodity prices sliding. Input costs are sticky. It's the exact same story. Canadian growers, though, have the fortune of the commodities are priced in U.S. dollars, so the currency exchange does provide a little bit of a buffer for them, which makes it different than if you're farming in Nebraska or Kansas.
Absolutely. Oh, by the way, how great is it to have this man here in the studio? What are you doing here? What's going on?
We got to do this more often.
Exactly. Here in Nashville, just a little fun or always work?
So business today, stopping in here today, which is great, and then some vacay for a couple days. We're doing some vacation. We've got another couple coming in to visit with my wife and I, and we're going to have a good time on Broadway.
What's on tap? Who's the country artist that you're seeing?
We're seeing Lainey Wilson.
Of course he is.
Yes.
You see the best of the best.
It's going to be a lot of fun down at the Bridgestone Arena. So
no doubt. Have a great time. Shaun, always a pleasure. Thank you for being here.
Shaun
Haney, again, thank you.
Send us your feedback on that bit by sending me an email, shaney@realagriculture.com, or call the Real Ag feedback line, 855-776-6147.